I passionately believe in the difference that great management and leadership can make. I had the great fortune to start my career at Procter & Gamble, where I spent 14 years, and I think P&G is widely acknowledged as a company globally that invests an awful lot in management and leadership development. And from day one at that company, you learn that you need to pay attention to two things simultaneously. The first is, do you deliver business results? Do you hit your market share targets, et cetera, and your bottom line? And the second is, do you develop your people? And you are rigorously tracked and taught against both of those objectives from the day you join the company. And it does make a very big difference to performance. But I also believe in standards of management and leadership development, best practice. And standards really are best practice. They're habits of excellence. And it is very important that we practice management and leadership if we are to improve. Right before I came to CMI, I spent time at the British Standards Institution, and indeed they are the arbiters of standards in the UK, and actually 8 out of the top 10 standards in the world come from BSI. So if you combine those two things, passion for management and leadership and belief in standards as best practice, you end up at CMI, which is exactly where I have ended up, because the Chartered Management Institute has as its fundamental remit to raise the standards or best practices in management and leadership and raise the number and quality of professional managers. So, what sort of environment do we find ourselves in? I think it's fair to say that times are extremely tough. We know at CMI, we've done quite a lot of research on this year. We're in a prolonged crisis, not only of the economic situation, but also of managers' morale. We know that 6 out of 10 managers see little or no benefit from the government's current economic policy. Only 2% of managers are saying that they're benefiting. We also know that in the past year, 9 out of 10 firms, organizations in the UK have experienced change, and 80% of that change is redundancy motivated. We know that only 1 in 2 are satisfied with their jobs in 2012. That's much lower than it was last time we asked 5 years ago. And we also know that managers are more stressed, more depressed, and more likely to move on than ever before. So, how to fix this situation? Well, that's why we're all here. And I think the good news is that we also know that effective management and leadership development is a wonderful remedy for this situation, because it really does 3 things. It builds the business, and we have ample proof that this is true. It attracts and retains talent. We also have ample proof that this is true. And it boosts management and team performance. So it works, and we know it works. Now, here's some proof. Earlier this year, CMI did what is, I think, the largest study on the effectiveness of the business benefits of management and leadership development, and we found that firms that had effective programs improved their organizational performance by 23% and their people performance by 32%. There are other global studies that show the same thing as well, but that is a very marked result done in this country this year. Some of the other stats that we know about the effectiveness is that growing firms have twice the number of effective managers than declining firms. We also know a small improvement in management and leadership can make a big difference. So if you get your company's improvement up 1 point on a 5-point scale, it's the same as expanding your workforce by 25% or increasing your capital by 65%. These are very, very impressive statistics, and they're true not only for large companies, but they're also true for SMEs, and they are true globally, and that was something uncovered by a global study done earlier this year under the auspices of BIS. So, we also know that management and leadership development attracts and retains talent, and it also improves managers. 8 out of 10 managers tell us that. 9 out of 10 say it improves their work. There is a ripple effect, so if you develop your managers, they'll do a better job developing their teams. And last but not least, it delivers ROI. So we know that all of these things are true as well. Lastly, and importantly, Professional management does make a difference. We at CMI advocate Chartered Manager, which is the only professional management qualification, and our studies into that show that not only does it act as a recognition, independent recognition of management skills and boost confidence, but it's also one of the top 3 most effective ways of developing people. And again, it pays out. On average, a chartered manager will deliver £362,000 of value to their company through either greater innovation or more cost savings. So, if it's so successful, if management and leadership development is so successful, one of the things I find so surprising is that so few companies actually do it. In the UK, only 1 in 5 managers are qualified. And yet if you ask people, 4 out of 5 will say they should be qualified. So clearly there's a gap there. We also know, I mentioned Chartered Manager as professional management qualification. Of 3.5 million managers in the UK, we have 2,000 Chartered Managers. Not exactly a lot. Only just over 1 in 3 firms delivers management training, and just about 1 in 10 offers any sort of national qualification. And an amazing 2/3 of organizations, when asked why they don't train, say, oh, no need. So obviously there's a lack of value perception. Will the situation change anytime soon? Not according to our research. Less than 1 in 5 managers expect management and leadership development budgets to increase in the next 6 months. And sadly, in a recent survey, 3/4 of CEOs said, guess what, I'm going to cut the spend. Not surprisingly, with some of these stats, the UK is not top of the pops in management and leadership development globally, and obviously things need to be done to remedy this situation. So, what is the result of this lack of value perception in management and leadership development? If you ask UK managers how effective is their line manager, 4 out of 5 say, okay. And actually, 4 out of 10 say bad. So, not surprisingly, only 1 in 5 is perceived as highly effective. And yet we wonder why we don't grow, and we wonder why people are miserable. And it's because we're not spending enough time on this topic, and time, money, effort, and value perception. Clearly, companies have issues with attracting and retaining talent. More than half say they do. And young managers, I know we'll be speaking about this later today, are very likely to move on in this scenario. In fact, 1 out of 2 we asked would say if they got a new job, they'd leave tomorrow. So there are issues with the current situation. So how do we change this? To change this, we need, I believe, 3 things. We need the right attitudes, the right tools, and the right measurements and expectations. The right attitudes. Great managers are made, not born. Best practice needs practice. Ask any Olympian and they'll tell you. You know, I know that Anna Watkins, the gold medalist, said that she practiced every day. She rode the equivalent of London to Rio before she won her gold medal. So she's out there every day practicing very hard, and indeed, we all need to practice our management and leadership skills to improve. It is a continuing journey. It's not a one-off. Ideally, you're going to be starting people when they're just assuming their first managerial responsibilities and developing them right up to the time they reach the top, and it even then needs to continue. It is a journey. Make the business case. I think that, and indeed it comes out when we ask CEOs, there isn't enough clear linkage between management and leadership development and the business benefits and the strategy of the company. So we're talking about the measurables of increased productivity, the measurables of better cost savings, the measurables of more effective deployment of funds, linked to the company's or the organization's key strategic objectives. And last but very importantly, it clearly isn't just an HR issue, it's everybody's issue. We need senior managers to support their line managers when they go on training, and too often they don't, and we especially need the CEO and CFO to buy into the benefits of management and leadership development. Right tools. Create a business case. At CMI, you'll find on our website, and I'm sure you have many in the room, many best practices amongst yourselves, ample evidence and studies to support the business case for management and leadership. Make use of it. Make use of the hard numbers. Obviously have appropriate learning. We know that people prefer blended learning. It needs to be flexible. They like it bite-sized. And it needs to be work-related. Make it relevant to their current situations. Use toolkits like measuring ROI and train the right topics. The number one topic that we know managers need today is change management. As I said, 9 out of 10 are going through change. And consider effective tools. Qualifications are largely considered. You can see by that red line there, that says what are the most effective tools. Qualifications come out on top, but if you look at the blue line, that's what companies actually do. There's a bit of a gap there. So make sure that you're using effective tools, and we have a session on that later today. And lastly, measure. Measure the effectiveness. Only 12% of CEOs trust their human capital measurements. So there's obviously huge scope for improving that, and I think it's about getting those hard measures. Articulate the benefits. If you're training your people, use it as a competitive advantage. One company we work with, Williams Lee, they're an outsourcing company, and they differentiate themselves with their customers on the basis of the amount they're investing in training their managers. And they win contracts off the back of it, so they flaunt it. Don't be afraid to flaunt your investment in your people with your customers as well as with your people. Benchmark. Benchmark how many national qualifications you're delivering versus your competitors. Consider things such as Well-Managed Organization Index or other tools available to benchmark how you're performing. And consider professionalizing management. We don't need a license to be a manager like we do an engineer, like we do an HR professional, like we do an accountant. Perhaps we should reconsider that. So, in sum, times are tough. We have low growth, low morale, lots of change. We know that management and leadership development can address this issue because we know it delivers business growth, it attracts and retains talent, and it improves managers' performance. And yet, too few firms practice it, as we've seen. And the result is 4 out of 5 managers in the UK are just okay. How do we change this? We need the right attitudes, we need the right tools, and we need the right measurements. And throughout the day, you will have the opportunity to learn from many of our speakers just how you can improve your own management and leadership development programs. So thank you very much and enjoy the day.